Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got John Meese on the line. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am awesome. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I was on your show not too long ago, so thank you again for having me as a guest, and really wanted to get you on because you're doing some amazing things. So why don't you share a little bit about you and the work that you're doing?
Well, first of all, thank you for being a guest on the Thrive School podcast and for staying connected there and for reaching back out so that we could have this conversation as well. Second of all, in terms of who am I and what do I do, that is the ultimate question, isn't it? We're all struggling with that. But I'm a traditionally trained economist turned entrepreneur, turned serial entrepreneur, but not like Fruit Loops, like multiple businesses, like different kind of cereal. So that's kind of like, that's my background. And, I have I have a software company and a co-working space company and an education company. And everything I do comes back to the core of my heart, which is I'm on a mission to eradicate generational poverty by helping entrepreneurs create thriving businesses. And I come from a family, where, sort of several generations of bad financial decisions that I was born into. And I was then cast as the golden boy to go change our family's trajectory and go off to this place called college, where you get a piece of paper that magically changes your life. And I got a couple pieces of paper from college, actually, that say that I know some things. And it didn't really change my life dramatically, I hate to say. And this is true for a lot of people in my generation, that I was really disappointed by academia as a path to really opening up new doors in my career. And so I just went back to the drawing board and was like, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we all spending tens of thousands of dollars that we don't have to go to classes we don't enjoy, to learn subjects we don't care about, to get jobs we don't like? And that's just like a bad deal. So as I started kind of going back to, and I did work for an economics research lab in college and outside of college. And so as I went back to that and just kind of looking at my experience there with my economics degree, I realized that we weren't really talking enough about the everyday entrepreneur. And so I just began this exploration of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I really just fell in love with entrepreneurship as a path to eradicating generational poverty. If you want to start a business and you want it to be wildly successful, you want to start a thriving business that fuels your life and make the world a better place, you don't need a college degree. You don't need $10,000 in the bank. You don't need 10,000 friends. You don't need a venture capital investor writing you $1 million check. All you need is to have clarity and passion to create a real solution to a real problem for real people. That's the basis of good business. And when you do that, you thrive.
And that's an amazing definition. And, I've heard, variations of that, from, if the Zig Ziglars and
sure,
all the others that, say, if you want to thrive in life, help people thrive in life. And
exactly.
And when you do that, we all reap the benefits from that. The work that I do, this from the show, I work with organizations and individuals on burnout prevention. Why? It's like, okay, yeah, I had my own burnout story, but that's not a big enough reason for me to do it. Mm-hmm. I rebounded from it. I, as a consumer, as someone that's part of society, wants everybody to live healthy and well lives so they can do the things they dream and want to do with when they want, where they want, and how they want, so they can thrive. So they are living their ideal life. For me, it's like it's success for them, and success is different for everybody. It's like, what's your version of success? What would make your life, quote unquote, successful? All right, we'll take the necessary steps to get there and create an environment where they can, because everyone can. I know a lot of people think, oh, it's not for me. I was done. And no, you know what? Your story you just shared is proof. A lot of people went through all kinds of different challenges, financial setbacks. Maybe you have, family members that grew up during the Great Recession, the Great Depression, and we had the Great Recession and all these different challenges. And he said, you went got a college degree. My brother and I, and my 8 cousins on my mom's side, we're the only 2 that went to college. And on that side of the family, our late Uncle Joe was the only one that had a college degree. And I'll, tongue-in-cheek story real quick. Uncle Joe was a little out there. Okay, I love him dearly, sweet, kindred soul, but he made some interesting, crazy choices in life, not dangerous or harmful, but just some really interesting choices and habits and whatnot. And my brother and I were both scared. It's like, if we get a college degree, we're going to start acting like that. We may want to rethink this and just drop out right now. But no, I love him and miss him. But again, those degrees, as over 80% of people that have degrees, they're not working in the field that their degree is in. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, okay. So I wrote this new book. It's called Survive and Thrive: How to Build a Profitable Business in Any Economy, including this one. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is that we've made this shift from the age of information to the age of insight. And the World Economic Forum is really the first that turned me on to this idea that the age of information is over, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. It's sort of like there was a time in history where there was a Stone Age and then there was a Bronze Age. And if it's the Bronze Age and you've still got a workshop full of tools made of stone, you are irrelevant. And so to stay with the times, you've got to learn how to use bronze. The same thing is true today in that the age of information just ended. And if your business is built on getting people access to piles of information, then you're out of date. You're relevant and you need to shift, because every single one of us has this supercomputer in our pocket that we can take out and talk to and say, hey, what is the answer to the meaning of life? Maybe not that one, but lots of other questions that you can get the answer to. Actually, fun fact, I'm Eastern Orthodox, and the Orthodox Christian Church does actually have an official answer to the question of what is the meaning of life, but that's a whole other subject. But the point is, we all have access to all the information in the world. And so that's a really exciting thing until you realize that we're spending all of our energy ignoring information. I mean, Bloomberg assessed that the average American sees 10,000 advertisement messages a day between email subject lines, banner ads, Facebook posts, billboards, 10,000 a day. So we're spending all our time and energy ignoring emails, ignoring notifications, ignoring information, because we don't want information anymore. We want insight. Now, insight is information that's been distilled through the filter of experience. And so, Michael, what you do on the show, right, is you don't go on the show and you say like, all right, here are 100,000 ways you can eliminate burnout. You say, no, based on my experience and the research that's out there and the information that's out there, I can tell you, here's the handful of things that actually matter. And that's you, Michael, speaking from your insight to actually filter information. So you're already doing this, but a lot of colleges don't do this. They still have classes where they just teach you everything possible that you can maybe know about a subject. And my sister-in-law got a degree in marketing. And when she graduated and she married into our family, about the same time I married into the family. So like she married Jake, I married Rachel, they were siblings. Then we got to know each other and realized pretty quickly, she said, John, I have a marketing degree, but I don't know what the heck you're doing over there and you're actually doing marketing, right? Because I was running online courses and email marketing campaigns and copywriting and social media marketing. None of that she was actually taught how to do. But she could tell you about the history of marketing and maybe, kind of like where marketing fits in the organization chart in a company. But that's not insight. That's not practical. And so sure enough, she doesn't work in marketing right anymore or ever really. So I think one of the reasons why college is becoming increasingly irrelevant is because they haven't adapted. I think if there's anyone who's listening to this that's part of a college administration or maybe on a board or a donor for a college and you're thinking, well, John, that sounds quite depressing. How can we adapt and change? I'll tell you this, it's focus on doing 2 things. 1, giving students only the insight they need. So what are the 2, 3, 4, or 5 things they need to actually understand about their industry? And secondarily, giving them opportunities. I say secondarily, but they go hand in hand. You need both of these. Give them hands-on experience to use that insight. Bring back the apprenticeship programs. I'm not talking about the way we do internships today. I'm talking about bringing back the journey the path to go from an apprentice to a journeyman to a master in your field, and have people that actually certify you based on your skills. I think if you do that, then it would take completely reinventing the college experience to become a lot more relevant. But until then, probably not.
Well, and that's the thing. We've seen such a divide between academia and what the quote unquote real world. And I'm not making light of academia. I know a lot of people, college professors and all of that, and the work that they do is impressive and meaningful, but it's what we need as a society. And, teaching, new grads or, people that are in college or university, if you want to own a business, what are, I know one of the things you talk about in your book is, and we used the analogy a little bit ago in my burnout thing. It's like, here's 100 things to avoid burnout. But in your situation, it's like in a business, it's like, there's only a handful of things. I believe there's 5 that you mentioned. So what are 5 things that every business needs to work on in order to be and set themselves up for success and to be able to thrive in whatever industry they're in?
Sure. Well, I think the 5 that you may be referring to, what I teach is that there are only 5 growth models in business that you can use to grow your business. But actually, here's the kicker, Michael. I actually recommend my clients and students and the businesses I work on myself to have just one growth model. So there are 5 that you can pick from, but just pick one because you need to distill your focus and dial into that. So those 5 growth models, and by the way, you probably know some of this. Like you're thinking, how do you grow your business? Well, you could probably list 100 ways to grow your business, but that's not helpful. You need one that you can focus on that works. All the different ways to grow your business can be fit under 5 umbrellas. One of them is viral growth, also known as word of mouth marketing. Viral growth doesn't just mean you get 100,000 views on your TikTok video. Viral growth means it spreads much like a virus, like, I don't know, COVID-19. Let's just pick that as an example. Just seems fresh in the mind. A virus spreads from person to person to person to person to person. Anybody, if you have had COVID-19, that does not mean that you interacted with patient 0, the first person to ever experience it, right? It spreads from person to person to person. Viral growth is the same way. It means I might tell you, hey, here's this really cool thing you should check out, like my book, Survive and Thrive. And then you read it and you go, this is a great book. And then you tell your friend, Susan, and you say, Susan, you should read this book. It's a great book. That is viral growth because I don't know Susan, right? I know people named Susan, but you get the metaphor. So that's viral growth. The second is paid growth. And so this one's probably the most straightforward, but also the most complicated and easily misunderstood. But it's like Facebook ads, billboards, Google ads. They all fit into this category of if you put in $1, can you get more than $1 back out? And that's the kicker, because in 2018, Wicked Reports analyzed, I think it was like $2 billion worth of ad spend data. I could have that number wrong. That's off the top of my head. But billions of dollars worth of ad spend data they analyzed in 2018 and discovered that the average return on ad spend was negative 50%. In other words, most people who are spending money on ads are losing money. So they're putting in $1 and they're getting out 50 cents. That's a bad deal. So paid advertising is not just the panacea that it's often sold as. It can be incredibly lucrative if you get it right, but if you get it wrong, it can be very expensive. The third is sticky growth. Now, this is the idea here is to develop irreplaceable infrastructure. So think of this as QuickBooks is a great example of this. If you use QuickBooks in your business to manage your invoices or your business records or your payroll or your tax filings, you're never going to switch off of QuickBooks. It doesn't matter if someone comes along and they're like, my software is like a little bit cooler. And you say, I don't care. I have years of history to QuickBooks. I'm never moving. That's sticky growth. And so because of that, QuickBooks can spend all kinds of money on, on inbound and outbound sales reps to sell their product. And they can spend huge amounts of money to sponsor big conferences and just get their brand in front of you, because they know once you sign up, even though it's a low conversion rate, you are there for life. So then the other 2 growth models, and those first 3, by the way, come from, I have my own spin on them, but originally I learned about them first in The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. But then I added 2 more that I think are different. One of them is search engine optimization, or SEO, which is sort of like referral or viral marketing, but viral marketing, but it's more like robot referrals. You've got Google is telling someone about your business, where and that's where you want to become basically the Wikipedia of your industry. And the 5th is affiliate growth, which is kind of like paid growth, except for affiliate growth, you only pay people for a commission if they drive results. So if you get someone to promote your business. So the key that I found to success in your business and growing is to pick one of those 5. don't try to do all 5, because that's what a lot of people do. They do a little bit of all 5, or maybe 3, or maybe 4. But just pick one and hyper focus on that, and you'll thrive.
It's one of those things where there's synergies between doing work and preventing burnout. And the reason being, and you said it, you've got those 5 things. People say, okay, I'm going to go do all 5. Well, you're spreading yourself so thin.
Yes.
You're not going to move anything forward. Even though there's some similarities with a couple of them, each of those things use different skills, different mindset, different thought patterns and habits and all of that. So what happens is you're not getting anywhere. So you go, okay, what should I work on for my business to grow and thrive? And look at it and get outsider point of view as well. Have advisors and say, okay, it probably makes sense for you to do this. And real quick, you mentioned QuickBooks. To date myself, I actually used QuickBooks 1.0 for DOS when it first came out, because we were using an organization I was with at the time. We were actually using Quicken, but it didn't have a really good accounting entity to it. So we were using Peachtree Accounting, which really dates me. But so all the accountants that are listening are going, wow, you are old. But anyway, QuickBooks, I love that analogy because they've evolved. There are people that have been using QuickBooks for decades, and they've adjusted it, and they're like, yeah, I'm not switching from that. And they have having a subscription model. Disclaimer: I'm not getting sponsored by them unless they want to. I use QuickBooks Small Accounting for my own business, and because I know QuickBooks, I've been using it for a while. So and it works really well, and it's got a lot more bells and whistles than that first version. That's for sure. But
I'm sure that's a good point. Even if you're going to choose sticky growth as your growth model, you still have to remain relevant, right? You still have to keep updating your platform, but you don't really have to go back and win a bunch of customers. You just got to keep your core customers engaged. And it was smart that QuickBooks switched to a subscription model, because if you have sticky growth, but you only have like a one-time sale, that's just a bad business, because then it's sort of like, you're selling one product and someone's going to use it forever and never pay you another $1. Well, you're going to run out of customers before too long. So QuickBooks is smart to switch to a subscription.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the platforms. We see it with all of the streaming devices where people are not necessarily keeping their cable subscriptions anymore, but they're subscribing to all these other services that are providing them the content that they want to watch. And lo and behold, if they subscribe to all of them, they're paying more than they were for their cable bill. But that's another story. That's a finance discussion. And
but that's actually a great example of a difference in this shift between the age of information to the age of insight. Because one of the characteristics of the age of, some of this actually predates the age of information, but the idea that there were gatekeepers in every industry that got to decide what was published and what you got to consume. So if you want to publish a book, you better hope that one of the 10 publishers who actually have a reach or influence or distribution approve your book. If you want to make some sort of change politically or religiously, you better hope that the Pope or the president or the king is going to listen to you. I mean, this is throughout most of human history. But now, all you need to do is pull out your phone, type a few words, and you could publish a book right now. It may not be very good, but you can. And the same thing goes is that no one's going to stop you from posting your opinion online either. And so these gatekeepers have kind of shifted. So whereas cable television and any television channel was kind of acting like one of the last examples of gatekeepers, and they get to decide what you're watching right now. So you tune into Channel 4 and you get to watch whatever Channel 4 thinks you should be watching right now, whether it's a commercial or a show. And people realize, no, I want access to what I want. I'm in control. The consumer's in control here. And that's why streaming platforms have dominated. It's not just because, it's not just because of the type of content they have, because actually many of the shows that are on Netflix and Hulu are also on TV, or were at least at some point. What the difference is not just the quality of the material, it's the difference in access. It's that it gives the consumers control to say, you know what, you get to choose when you engage with what content. And so that's a shift. That's another example of the shift from the age of information to the age of insight.
So what do you think's next? What do you think the next shift is in business? I mean, obviously, insight is going to be the big thing, but where are some industries you think? I know this is a big question, but let me see if I can narrow it down a little bit.
I'll take it.
What do you think? What industries do you think are going to be able to thrive in this shift to an insight type of world? And are there any that you think might have some challenges, at least in the short term?
Sure. So the first thing I will say is that the age of insight is just beginning. So it'll take decades really for us to move into this era. And so the first thing that happens is right away, the demand for curators has already risen more than the supply. In other words, people are looking for you, someone out there, to be their go-to guru on 100 different subjects about their life. I mean, that's a characteristic of the age of insight, is that I don't want to read 20 articles about 20 different types of dress shirts that I should wear. I want one person I trust on Instagram or in an email newsletter to tell me what 3 shirts I should buy right now. And that's true in almost every industry and every decision. That like we're all looking for like that person to tell us, okay, what's the one thing I should do to lose weight? Or what's the one thing I should do to run faster, if that's important to you, right? It's only things that are important to you that you actually want a guru for. But, you want someone that you trust to tell you, how to prepare your meals or how to take care of your spouse or your children. And so there's all this demand really just to pick a target group of people who have real problems they care about, they need solutions for, and become the solution provider to them. And so I think that's huge. I think that's just beginning. And that'll be a shift that'll take a long time to really continue to max out. So there's a big blue ocean over here. So that's exciting. The second thing I would say is that with the shift to the age of insight, also simultaneously and related, is another shift to what some economists call the attention economy. Now, there's an economist who won a Nobel Prize for coming up with this terminology, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's wonderful. But the attention economy is just this whole thing that if you ever took Econ 101, if you've ever even heard of economics or finance, you've probably heard of supply and demand, right? There's 2 things. Markets are made up of supply and demand. Where supply and demand connect, that's the price. But I was asking a friend of mine yesterday, he owns a coffee roasting company. I said, how much coffee could you roast this year? He said, let me think. I think the most we could make is about 120,000 pounds. And I said, could you make more? And he said, yeah, I guess we could. We just had to get a bigger machine. The reality is in today's market, supply in almost every industry is almost infinite. And that's new. Right? The idea that you can 3D print something or ship it from another country or outsource it or digitally copy it. I mean, talk about like, how many episodes or how many times can you sell an ebook? All of them, right? I mean, there's no limits, there's no constraints. And so supply is becoming a non-issue in a lot of industries. And so like a bookstore, for example, this is a great example of businesses that will either die out or they will innovate. A bookstore can continue to operate as if we're in a supply-based economy, where you walk in the door and they say, come in, we have lots of books. We have all the books. And you go, I have all the books too in my pocket. I can just hit a button and I have all the books in the world, more books than you carry. Or they can recognize that in the attention economy, what matters is the curation, where they can say, come to our bookstore where we have the best sci-fi novels in the world, some you've never heard of. And you go, yes, if you're into sci-fi, you want to go to there. And that's also where they have meetups and showings of, sci-fi movies. And like, it becomes a whole cultural phenomenon. That's the businesses that'll succeed are the ones that recognize their role has shifted. They're not in control of supply. They're not. We all have access to it. Their job is curation. And the attention economy is called that because the true most powerful people in this new economy are attention brokers. They're people who have people's eyeballs, have people's attention. Because if you have that, then that's the currency of today. So do you have an email list? Do you have that followers on social media? If you have people paying attention to you, I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, there are people who are paid $10,000 to post a picture of themselves on Instagram wearing a specific pair of shoes because they're attention brokers, not because they're business moguls or because they have some kind of patent on something. It's because they have people's attention. And so that's what's going to make the difference in the coming economy is if you have people's attention and if you're willing to own that and keep that by becoming a curator.
Yeah, I love the analogy of the curator and yeah, you see people, wearing different kind of things and monetizing, the use of their brand in a way to basically highlight another brand. And it's interesting to watch the dynamics of all of this. And real quick before we wrap up, the bookstore analogy in Canada, the main bookstore is Indigo or Chapters, and in their store, and most of their stores, are usually 2 levels. And I would say about 50% of the door or the store is actual books. The rest of it is, notebooks and paper and household type items, coffee, cooking type of accessories and all of that kind of stuff. So they're not just a bookstore. They got all kinds of different things. But one of the things, as far as their books are concerned, is their CEO, her name is Heather. So in the main entrance of their store, they have this big banner that says Heather's Picks. And it's a series of 10, maybe 20 books, and all the books they have that are her picks. And they're usually discounted a little bit. And there are a lot of people that will go month after month and buy what Heather recommends because they know who she is and they understand and recommend it. It's Barnes & Noble should do it if they haven't. I haven't been in a B&N in a while. But
here's the thing. You guys see the difference? Because Barnes & Noble has something like that. But the Barnes & Noble thing is it's like Barnes & Noble's favorites. Who's Barnes & Noble? It's not a real person. We know that when we automatically assume when we see something like Barnes & Noble, it'll say recommended reads. And we're like, oh, so these are the ones that you want us to buy to make you a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. But when I say something, I love the brilliance of that where it says Heather's Picks. Because all of a sudden it's like, whether or not you know the CEO of the bookstore chain, she's a real human being. And you can connect that with the name.
And she's front and center, and she does a lot of different things. So people that are familiar with the chain know who she is, and it makes such a big difference. And she's thriving, and people that go in that store thrive because they know what it takes for them to be able to thrive. So John, I've loved this conversation. Congratulations again on the book. So where can people find out more about you and this awesome work you do?
Go to surviveandthrivebook.com. I mean, this is a brand new book, just came out, and it's already been #1 bestseller in direct marketing and marketing for a small business, and that's exciting. And top 100 books in entrepreneurship. I'm excited about that because this book is something that I'm trying to really just be part of the solution to the many problems created by the last year and a half of chaos. And so if you're interested in that, being part of the solution, please go to surviveandthrivebook.com, get yourself a copy. There are some bonuses you can see there on that website that go with the book that you get for free when you get a copy. And then if you like it, get a copy for a friend or someone else who needs it. If someone else has a business that maybe isn't doing great and you want them to do great, get them a copy. If maybe you have a friend who's been talking about starting a business for years, but they haven't yet, get them a copy. This is meant to really be a crash course. I love that some reviewers have called it a weekend MBA, but it's a lot cheaper than an MBA. So get yourself one.
Definitely. And I'll have that information in the show notes. So again, John, thank you so much for your time and congratulations again on the book.
Thanks, Michael. Keep up the good work.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.